Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we've made it. We are on the last book in the 21st Century Courtesan series by P.S. Dumond. If you have not already listened to the first 4 books in the series, those links are going to be available down below in the description section. Once you finish those book reviews, come and join us as we dive into the final book of the series, The Devoted Fan. The book starts off with a story from Mia's perspective. And remember, Mia is Amelia. So in the previous book, it had started off with us talking about Evie and Maureen going to see Ruby on her birthday. It was her 7th birthday. And the foster parents wanting to talk to Maureen about something dealing with Ruby. So what it was is that they wanted to adopt Ruby officially. We find out that Mia was about 13 years old, and she initially had really, a good relationship with her parents previously. They were very loving. They wanted to spend time with her. And then her mother got pregnant with the second child, and they lost that baby. And so then the mother went into a severe depression. And the father started drinking more and more, spent less time with her. So basically she went from being the kid that got all the attention to no attention. So when they wind up getting Ruby through the foster care system, they absolutely adored her. She was like this perfect child. She was 6 years old when they got her. So it was perfect. And it was okay, now the family can be whole because now we have this baby or this young child in the family, Well, that didn't happen because they weren't able to adopt Ruby because Maureen was able to get her daughter back. And so what happened is on the day that Evie and Maureen came to see Ruby, Ruby didn't want to go with them. She wanted to stay and was like, I want to stay with my new mommy, Ryan. And so Evie was like, no, you have one mother and that's your, Maureen, that's your only mother. And, she's the one that gave birth to you. And this is a special day for both of you, all this type of stuff. And so that is the day that the whole idea of Ruby being a part of the family died. And then 2 months later, parents filed for divorce. The dad moved out. And so her life was changed forever. We come back to the present. Evie's in the hospital. Max is there with her. So I was wrong in that previous review. I stated that Max was an undercover cop. He wasn't an undercover cop, but he was working security for Wolf Enterprises. So he was hired by Easton to look over Evie. So he was undercover, but just not a cop. So he's there with Evie, and they're sitting there talking back and forth. Easton comes in, and his eyes are bloodshot red. And he, of course, is asking her, how is she, wanting to find out what's going on. And she doesn't want surgery. She wants them to reset her arm. It's going to hurt, but she would rather that. She's afraid of surgery. So she didn't want to do that whole thing. So she, of course, is screaming bloody hell when they reset her arm. And the nurse tells her, just look at your boyfriend. And Easton's like, yeah, just look at your boyfriend. And Evie's like, well, when did you become my boyfriend? And he was like, a while back. So then, of course, she screams in pain. And he's just, encouraging her, just telling her, you got this, we got this. So they leave the hospital some hours later. They take his private jet to his place in Lake Tahoe. And he figured, she could get some rest there. And that's his home base. Of course, it's massive. He takes her inside, absolutely gorgeous. He has to help her take a bath because, her arm, it's broken. It's in a cast. While he's helping her take a bath, she asks him again, why were you just so mean to me for so long? He gave her some type of BS answer. And she's like, no, that's not it. What is it? And he basically just kind of let her know that he always liked her. And he also knew how his brother felt about her. And he didn't want to betray his brother. And then they start talking about, if she ever wondered, like, where Wyatt is. And she feels like he just floats between Earth and the eternal. And, hopefully he'll find rest because it's time for everyone to move on and to let go. And so he helps her get on her PJs. He has to cut them so she could get into them. And then they get in bed and they fall asleep. So next few days, same thing. She eats with Easton, goes to sleep with Easton. They don't have sex during this he's taking, meetings, different things like that. She talks with Victoria. They FaceTime and they talk about what happened. They both cry. Victoria wants to know, does she want her to fly out to where she is? And then she gets, but she was like, no, don't worry about that. I'm okay. She gets a text message from Amelia. They talk on the phone. She tells her what happened. And Amelia's like, oh gosh, that's like a movie. I hope nothing like that ever happens to me. Which is a really weird thing for someone to say, especially someone that's supposed to be your friend. And then she asks her to stay in her apartment because apparently they're doing some plumbing or some bullshit at her place. And Evie's like, okay, sure, you can stay in the second room. So Amelia is trying to find out where she's staying. And all she said was that she's staying with a friend. And Amelia's like, who is it? And Evie's like, that's not important. Evie asks how the dogs are. She tells her, and also tells her, don't go underneath the tracks because of what happened the last time. And she was like, we've been there a few times and nothing's happened. There's no one there. But clearly we know she lies. So then she asks, when are you coming back? And Evie says probably in a few days. She tries again to find out where she is, who she's staying with. And again, Evie will not tell her. So then she starts to wander around. She finds a room that pretty much is probably where I think Wyatt stayed while he would stay at that house. And of course, it's all of his different books. They've been turned into posters. And of course, Wyatt appears. They have a conversation. And basically, he says that it's, she tries to tell him, you can let go. It's time for you to rest. And he says, I can't because the game is still going. He's like, you're not out of the clear, basically. So her and Easton later that evening, they go out to one of his casinos. And old Dylan McAllister is there. And she sees him while she's in the security room. And she realizes, even more so seeing him, that his first love is the game. Like, that's his wife. He's literally married to the game. She messages with Ruby. Ruby had reached out to her because Easton had reached out to Ruby and was like, you need to talk to your sister. So she tells her pretty much everything that happened, but not everything. But she did tell her about the broken arm. She says, something's, happening between her and Easton. And she, lets her know where she is. But she asks her, keep it private. Don't tell anybody. They talk about mom. The mom's trying to find a place. And she's thinking about moving her into Wolf Manor. Possibly even Ruby too. So we're going to see how that plays out. She talks to Easton about going back. And he's like, are you not happy here? And she's like, no, it's not that I'm not happy here. But, I still have, a other life. I have my mom, and I'm going to move into Wolf Manor. And so he was like, okay, cool. Because he was even willing to let the mom, move out to his place in Lake Tahoe. But she wants to be in Wolf Manor, so that's what she's going to do. So there's a letter from the devoted fan, but this is clearly Amelia now. No more guessing. It's her. Saying that I know that you're staying with Easton at his lodge in Lake Tahoe. And she knows it because she put a GPS on Evie's phone a while back. So she Googled it and sees that it's breathtaking. I'm like, this freaking girl. So she's keeping all these letters. So these aren't letters that she's sending anymore. These are just letters that she's writing and she's keeping. So in the letter it says she's not going to show it just yet. She pretty much plans on staying in that apartment. And says, you can't stay gone forever. You're going to have to come back and deal with reality eventually. Evie goes to see her mother at the institute. Her mother's telling her all about her apartment hunting. It's not going that great. And then Evie talks to her about moving into Wolf Manor. And her mother's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And she's like, yes. So she's excited. And then she tells her mother that she's going to take a leave of absence from her job. But the reality is she's quitting Ma Maison. So she packs her mom up. They leave. Her, Max, the bodyguard, and I think Easton's there too, if I'm not mistaken. She likes Max, but she doesn't like having someone like watching over her 24/7. And so she's thinking in her head, like, I'm going to have to talk to Easton about this, you know? And she did talk to him about it, and Easton's like, he fought her back on it a little bit, but then he was like, if that's something you really don't want, if you feel like it's not what you need, okay, but if, anything changes, like, he's going to go back on duty. And she's like, okay, she could deal with that. She has a night out with the girls. They go to that Greek food place they love. Amelia and Victoria are with her. And she tells Mr. Is it Katiakis or something like that, what happened. And he, of course, is like, I know people that can take people out. He's like, I have family that's not as nice as I am. And she's just kind of like, okay, that's good to know, but it's okay. So in the apartment, Amelia's helping her pack up her stuff, and she's just being difficult, and she's being weird. And she's trying to make sure that Evie takes her medicine that she doesn't need to take anymore. The doctor told her, take as needed. And Amelia's just like, well, you should keep taking it. Maybe you should call the doctor to make sure, that you can stop taking them. Just weird stuff. Just gaslighting the girl, basically. Constantly. And then she told her with the arm thing, she made the comment, pretty much like the job we do, that's always a possibility. And she was like, I've never had this happen, ever to me, And Amelia goes, well, it's the first time for everything. Like, there's no sympathy. There's something off about this. And she's noticing what's happening, but it's not clicking for Evie like it should. I know you shouldn't have to look at your friends sideways, but people can have ulterior motives. And if you start noticing people saying certain stuff that doesn't sound like a friend, then you might want to pay a little closer attention and not try and brush it off so much, That's the part of Evie I don't like. She, it's kind of like, okay, you're my friend. And even though I see you doing stuff, you're my friend. You know what I mean? So we don't want to fully dive into what this other person's doing. You want to question everything else, but that type of stuff she doesn't like to question. And that's just not smart. So then Amelia asks her, can you ask Easton if he can comp me a room at the Franklin Hotel? And Evie's just like, why don't you text him? And she's like, well, what's the problem? Like, why won't you, text him for me? She's like, why won't you help me out? And so then Evie's like, okay, I'll do it in a minute. And then later on, she asks her again about texting him. She hadn't done it. So she's like, okay, I'll do it now. So she texts him. And Easton's like, I already told her I would, comp her a room. So I don't know why she's having you text me about it. So right there, again, something's off. Like, what game is this girl trying to play? You see what I'm saying? But again, she notices it, but not enough to fully look at it. It's just, oh, okay, brushes it off. Easton comes to pick her up later. They're going to leave, of course, because she's not trying to let Amelia know what her and Easton have going on right now. And so he gives her a Tiffany box. She kind of freaked out a little bit because that was the same type of box that the hair was in. But he gives her this beautiful gold and pictures, and it shows that Jeff Beaker guy done got fucked up. He has a broken arm. His leg's broken. His face looks disfigured, like it's bruised severely. And she looks at him and she says, "What did you do?" He said, "I'd do anything." He was like, but what happened is when he started looking further into the Jeff Beaker dude, he finds out, he starts looking at his financials and the different assaults and different things that he's done. And he's like, he should have never cleared that background. And so come to find out, he has also violated someone else and the Gino Carlo family, which is a mafia family. And he gave them the information. And so they handle it. So she's like, she didn't like it, but then again, it got handled. She does see Wyatt again, and he says to her, this is what I want for you. He's going to love you. He's going to protect you. He'll keep you safe. She comes back to reality, and Easton tells her, how afraid he was at first because he was falling for her. And he thought it was because of his brother, like his brother always made him feel calm, and Evie had that same effect. And so he kind of felt like maybe that was why he felt this attachment to her. But the truth of the matter is he's in love with the girl. That's just point blank period. Easton takes her back to his place in Chicago. They have a nice good fuck. Afterwards they're talking, and he asked her how the moving was going. And then he brought up Victoria, saying how, he does like her. She's like a no bullshit type of person. And then she asked him about Amelia, like basically why did he date her? And he just was like, honestly, I wouldn't call that dating. And it was just because she was there. That's it. He's like, I know it's not nice, but it's the truth. And I respect that. All truths aren't nice. That's just the reality of it. Some of them are not. But I like that he was real about it. He doesn't like her. He says she's extremely clingy. She's very manipulative. And the first thing that Evie says when he says this is, no, she's not. I know her. And he says, you think you know her. And I think sometimes because she's empathic, she feels like she can get a good sense of people. But that doesn't mean that. Because sometimes if someone's giving you too much of, let's say, how do I say this? If they're giving you all of these positive things, you're not looking at anything else. You're just looking at, oh no, they're good. They helped me with this. They did that. They did this. You're not looking at anything else. So when they do start doing certain things, you just kind of look at it like, oh, they're just having a bad day. Or, you're going to make excuses for it. But it's kind of a hindrance for her. Because sometimes some shit she can't really see. But hey. So when she gets back to her place that night, she falls asleep. She's woken up by Amelia banging on the door, yelling at her, saying that she left the pizza box in the oven. And she left the oven on. And that's the box that started to smoke. And Evie's like, I don't remember doing that. And Amelia's like, maybe it's all the drugs you're taking. And Evie says, I'm only taking ibuprofen. And Amelia's like, whatever. It's okay. It's okay to just say that you're wrong. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. So this girl is gaslighting her. This is a clear sign that there is something wrong. Evie's silly ass goes, I'm sorry, And then Amelia brings up Miss Hazel and was like, Miss Hazel fell in the garage. Maybe it's a good thing she did, because her and her little rat dog would have been burnt to to pieces because of your carelessness. And then Evie's like, wait a minute, how did you know she fell in the garage? And Amelia covers quick and she goes, oh, one of the neighbors told me about it. So then Evie apologizes again. So then she starts going back and forth in her head, like, did I do something? Like, did I do this? Did I forget to turn off the oven? And Amelia had also asked her about, well, do you need me to stay with you at Wolf Manor, help you all get settled? And she was like, nah, we're good. We got that covered. And that right there, like, how you gonna come at me completely sideways and now you want to stay where I'm moving to? Like, that's such bizarre behavior. Like, that is bizarre. That doesn't make any sense. And again, I feel like it's almost like she has to have this empathic reaction for her to believe that something's happening. Because if she doesn't have that empathic reaction, it's like, no, 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 it's not that. Evie gets a text message from Dylan. Ruby had told him about what had happened to her, so he's checking in on her. And they're basically going to try to be friends. He knows that she's seeing someone. He's kind of like he figured she was and who it is, but they never say Easton's name. But he's going to come over. They're going to hang out and have pizza. And so she invites Amelia to hang out with them as well. So this letter now has Amelia saying that it's just a letter she's writing because she's not sending these. It says, you get the love of these rich, handsome men. You get this beautiful house on the lake. And I'm the one that deserves all these things. Why do you think you should have them? And so she has stolen the ring that Wyatt gave her. She's going to keep it for a while along with the earrings, the ruby earrings. She's going to keep those as well. Because she stole those apparently a while back. She's now going to put all her cards on the table with Dylan. And she's going to pick him up at the airport and tell him that they need to be together. And basically she's going to make her full move on Dylan. And she signs it now, not your devoted fan, Amelia. So Victoria comes by to give her her Christmas gift. Victoria's going to move to Paris. She apparently has linked up with some guys through Amelia, who's opening a club and needs her to train the girls. It's not a long-term gig, but she is going to be gone for a little while. So, of course, Evie said, are you sure? Is this safe? Now she want to check out everything after what happened to her. And she says, Madame Marjan, checked him out. The money's legit. Everything's good. So then they have a heart-to-heart. They cry. She also lets Easton know that she's going to hang out with Dylan. They're going to have food and stuff. And that, it's nothing like that. She let him know, I let him know I'm in a relationship. And Easton wants to know, did you tell him it was me? And she said, no, I didn't want to. I didn't want to go into detail like that. But I did let him know that me and him are just going to be friends. That's it. And so then after Victoria leaves, a little while later, Amelia comes. She's dressed up. Looks a little suspicious because she said she was going to run an errand. But this looks like she was going to meet somebody. So she comes in, slams the door. She's pissed. She grabs a beer. Evie thinks, this is probably about some guy she liked. And she tells her, it's his loss, And she asks, do you want to talk about it? And she's like, no. And she just goes in the room, slams the door. So then Dylan comes up. They talk. They have a little conversation. They are moving in the direction of friendship. It's weird, but they're going to be able to be friends. He apparently has been linked up with some international players that are going to be at this game in Chicago. That's why he's in town. And this could open him up to playing overseas. So he's really excited about this. And again, I think that was going to be a problem for him. So now he's already gone a lot now, just doing stuff in the States. Open up the world to him. Yeah, that ain't going to work. And so they're going to, Dylan and Evie are going to take the dogs for a walk. She asks Amelia, do you want to come with us? And she's like, yeah, I could use some fresh air. So they go on the walk. Amelia's bitching the whole time. It's cold. She's got on high heel boots. She's screaming, this is too far. I mean, just a total fucking nag. And she's like, I'm tired. And they were like, well, go wait for us at one of the restaurants, one of the shops. And she's like, I don't want to go by myself. She's just like whiny and ridiculous. So she makes a comment about how, she's always getting Evie sloppy seconds and she doesn't get thanks and all this type of stuff. And how she's the one that got her into my maison. And Dylan's like, oh, so I have you to thank for meeting my lucky charm. And she's like, yep, you sure do. And then she just keeps on bitching. So she gets a text message or a phone call, I can't remember. And then I think it was a phone call, she walks away. Magically now she's okay. She's going to go wait for them at the diner. It's a place called Diane's. So when she leaves, Dylan tells Evie, I know that's your friend, but you might want to be careful about her. He's like, how much do you really know about her? Because basically he's saying this bitch can't be trusted. She did finally see how Amelia was looking at Dylan and realized that Amelia has been crushing on him. But that's what I mean by, I'm quite sure she's been giving googly eyes to this man different times that you've been around him with her, but you don't pay attention because you heavily rely on that empathic feeling instead of what is literally right in front of you. So Amelia writes another letter. She is now furious. The call that she got was from Kyle Monroe. He's upset because he has now been questioned by Detective Novak, and they're probing into him. They want to know where he's been the last 6 months. They want to know if he had anything to do with the break-in. But she's the one that actually did that break-in. She's the one that left the hair and the note and all and the other stuff. And she's thinking, you know what? Maybe I'll just frame him for it. She liked Kyle, but now it seems he might turn on her, and so she might throw him under the bus first. Then she said she was going to hurt herself, but now she's think she'll just hurt Evie instead, since that's the person who she feels needs to be hurt anyway. She apparently had a better, she had bared her soul to Dylan when she picked him up from the airport, asking him if they could take things to the next level, and he said, we're just friends. That's how I see you. But she is like, I haven't been going to tournaments and, and spending time with him at games, just to be friends. But that's kind of, I'm going to interject my little 2 cents. But you did that, and you thought, okay, well, if I spend time with them, if I do this, he'll start seeing me in another way. But if that man ain't never told you he sees you in another way, like, you're just delusional. Like, you're just hoping that was going to change his mind. Like, you did that to yourself. That's not a guarantee that a person's going to want you. And you know what I mean? Like, some people just can be friendly. It don't. It's not always some other stuff. But she felt like her doing that stuff was enough that she could throw that on him. Like, that man ain't gave her no type of signals that he wants something more. So why on God's green earth did you feel like if you bared your soul, he was going to be like, oh, let's be together? Like, that was just stupid on her part. So back to the letter. She's freaking out a little bit too because she had a ton of pictures and other things of Evie that she can't find. It was in a box. And I guarantee you it got placed in the move. And so now she's freaking out a little bit because that means she's closer to being found out. She's no longer signing the letters. She's now signing the letters no longer devoted, no longer a fan. And she puts her name, Amelia. So Dylan and Evie walk. They talk a little bit. Dylan's mother's doing good. She told Dylan, she owes Evie a lap dance. Apparently, Evie had gone down there to spend time with her on her birthday. Dylan was out of town on doing a tournament, and they went to a Dancing Man Club, is what they call it. It was a stripper club. They had a great time, and he starts thinking like, he fucked up. But again, I think, like she said, he's married to that game. And that's his first love. And there's probably no one that's going to make him feel the way that game makes him feel, that rush that he gets. Hopefully he'll find someone that's okay with that number 2 or 3, whatever position they're going to have in his life, But she knew she wasn't going to be okay with that. And so she knows she made the right decision. So during this walk, they do realize that they have an actual friendship, and so they can have a friendship. They will be able to move back into that space. It might be a little weird. It's not that he's not attractive, it's not that she's not attracted. It's just that that space has it's kind of it's gone. And so this is a new space for them to figure out, and I think they both want the friendship, and they can do it. So they're walking, and they go where that tent is, which is under the tracks. And her ass, for whatever reason, she saw a light beaming out of there. She wanted to go. Dylan's telling her to stop. She doesn't. She goes in the tent. It's a pretty nice setup inside. And she sees a Tiffany blue box. There's pictures of young girls, and one of the pictures in there is a recent one of her, as well as when she was a kid. So she starts freaking out. She grabs the box, and then Kyle Monroe walks up, and she's really freaking out, and she's frozen in place. Kyle's got a knife. He's swinging it around, and he appears to be drunk, and one of the dogs breaks loose and starts barking. And it seems like it was about to do something, like Kyle was about to do something to the dog, and Evie starts having these flashbacks of what happened when they lived with Kyle. And basically, one night she woke up and his hand was underneath the covers, and she remembers another time where she was doing her homework and he was trying to check it for her, and he brushed past her breast. So she starts having all these memories that she clearly had suppressed. And then she, says, Kyle, is that you? And he's like, yeah, is it Evie? And she's like, yeah, it's me. And he's like, oh, wow, you've gotten, you're an adult and all this type of stuff. But it's like, you got pictures of me recently. Don't try and act like you don't know what I look like now. That's so creepy. So then he sees that she has the box, and he's like, you shouldn't touch other people's things. That's not right, and he's clearly out of it. And he's, he's disoriented. He's got that knife, slinging it around. And he said something about, that they, we should catch up one day, have coffee, and how nice that would be. But she doesn't answer. The dart starts barking, and I think it's the Pete dog that's acting up the most. And he goes and swipes the knife, and I'm not sure if he even landed on something, because all they hear were gunshots. And Dylan got hit with one of those shots, and then Kyle Monroe got hit in the heart, I think 2 or 3 times. It was Amelia, because Amelia keeps her little gun with her. So Evie runs over to Dylan, and she's doing what she did with Wyatt all those years ago. It's kind of crazy. It's 13 plus years later. It's snowing outside. And she's trying to, will life back into Dylan. And he does open his eyes, and she's just like, stay with me, just don't leave, stay with me. So 2 weeks have passed. Evie pretty much had a mental breakdown after that. Her brain just shut down. And I think it's all of the emotional stuff from the past 6 months hit her in the head, and there was no more for her to do. Your brain, when it can't take it, it's just going to stop. It's just I can't do anything. Your mind's going to do whatever it takes to protect itself. And so she's having therapy sessions every day. She'll talk a little bit, go back to sleep. She'll eat a little bit, go back to sleep. Easton's been there every single day, 24/7. He works right next to her. We find out that Dylan did make it. It was touch and go at first, but he's still alive. Amelia hasn't come to the hospital. She did talk to her, but she just said, it's just too much. It was just too traumatic. It was 3 shots that took Kyle out, 3 right to the heart. Cause she goes like Amelia goes to the shooting range, like she's good at it, which is why I believe she shot Dylan on purpose. She didn't want to, take him out, but or maybe she did, I don't know, but she hit him in the chest. It was close to his heart, and again, I think that was calculated because Dylan didn't want her. That's crazy. So they tell her, like, basically when the paramedics got there, they had to like tear her off of Dylan because she was trying so much to will him to stay. So Rosemary, Dylan's mom, comes by. They go down to the cafeteria, and Rosemary just pretty much lets her know she thanks her for how much he's changed and that he's been back in their lives. And she's blaming herself because she's like, if he hadn't come to see me, this never would have happened. And she's like, if you would have never came into his life, he would never come around. We wouldn't even have him in our lives, really. And she's like, I know I won't be able to call you my daughter-in-law, but I'm still glad I'm able to call you my friend. And I thought that was so sweet. Goes home. Max is her full-time bodyguard. Nothing she could do about it after what had happened. Ruby's decorated the whole place inside and out for Christmas, for the holidays. She's cooked a massive dinner. She tells Evie, we should get a gift for Max. And so Evie goes up and gets one of the books that Wyatt signed. And they resemble, because Max has the same type of tattoos, the hawks, that Wyatt had on his arm. And so she gives it to Ruby, and she wraps it, and that's what they give to Max. And he, of course, he's like really touched by it. So then she she gets a call from Dylan. He FaceTimes her. He's back in Dallas. They medvaced him back to Dallas so he could be close to his family. And he's getting better and better. He's got a lot of tubes in him, but he's gonna survive. She's happy to see him. And he was worried about her because he had heard about her break. And he's like, you doing okay? She's like, no, I'm doing better. And so they'll talk later when he has a little bit more strength. And then her and Easton, after dinner, go up to their room, which is technically Wyatt's room. I don't know, feels kind of weird to me, but that's going to be their room. She feels like now they have permission to make it their own, but okay. All right, whatever you all feel. And then, of course, they have a nice fuck session. The next day, Evie's going to unpack. Ruby's going to go into town to meet her friend Mia. Maureen's going to go to mass or go to church for prayer. And so Ruby says apparently Mia's going through like a really tough time because her parents ditched her for the holiday. So she's renting out a lodge not far from where they're living in Sister Bay, Wisconsin. So Evie goes looking for some of her stuff. She can't find some piece of jewelry. She's looking. And so then she goes and talks with Easton, who's working, and we find out he's still working on trying to find out who helped Jeff pass that background. So he knows it was someone within Ma Maison who cleaned up his background enough for it to get through. And he wants to know who the hell set her up. We get a letter from Amelia again once she's written. And it's saying that she's taking a break from Mia because Mia's too much. She's pissed off because her parents... her dad is remarried. He has a new wife who is like 5 years older than her. And she's pregnant. And apparently she pulled the I'm sick card. So they're not coming. And then her mother has a new fiance. But the mother was like, well, if the father's not going to make the trip, she's not going to make the effort either. And I'm just like, that's fucked up. Because what has she done that you all don't want to be around her? You know what I mean? Like, that's still your kid, so why would you not want to be around her? That's still fucked up. But it's sad, but it's like, it's not Evie's fault. It's not, Ruby's fault. Like, it's not their fault. Like, I don't understand why her energy isn't towards her piss poor parents. That's the part that I don't get. I would think she would be more so trying to put vengeance against them. But it's like she's trying to find other people to blame. That shit's crazy. But I guess crazy people do crazy things. So she pretty much is saying that she needs to end this because she's living in the house that she's supposed to be in. And basically she's living her life and she needs to make this right. So maybe if she deals with both Evie and Ruby, two wrongs can make a right. So Evie has a conversation with Max while she's looking for stuff, and he says how he had lost his sister a long time ago, and he had to try and find a balance between like good and evil, and that Wyatt's books are what helped him. She goes after that conversation to go back to looking for the missing jewelry from Wyatt and Dylan. So while she's looking for the stuff, she gets a text message from Ruby, and Ruby tells her, like she's having a crappy time with Mia. Mia is bitching about her family, and then she's blaming her for stuff from the past, saying that Ruby's the reason why her family didn't make it, why her parents' marriage didn't work. Told her, you were supposed to be the bridge, and then you broke up my family, all this type of stuff. And keep in mind, the girl was like she was it was her birthday when they came over there. So when she got to that family, she was 6 years old. Like, what did you think that type of pressure was going to do like that? What did you think a 6-year-old child was going to do? So Evie, of course, was like, you were a child. How were you supposed to do that? Band-Aid babies never work anyway. And then she realizes this is gaslighting. And it's reminding her of someone. And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Finally, she's thinking like, yeah, Amelia does that stuff. But she still hasn't put it together that Mia is Amelia yet. So Amelia's writing another letter, I guess, while she's outside in the car. And she's saying that she found someone on the dark web that initially she was putting up pics of Evie, naked pics of Evie on the dark web, and that the person still wanted to talk to her even after they realized like that it wasn't Evie, like they still liked her, and they've been helping her out with information. And that she couldn't find the person's name, but she did some digging and find out that this person's name is Max Bauer, and they are working security for Easton Wolf. So Evie's looking through her stuff, still trying to find a jewelry box, and she finds it, but then it's mixed in with Amelia stuff. And the pictures she sees, she's finally able to put 2 and 2 together, as well as the letters that she had received. And also these are the ones that Amelia never sent out. They were just the ones she wrote. And she realizes Amelia is Mia. And realizes Amelia is her stalker. That's the devoted freaking fan. She tried to call her sister at first, but couldn't get her. But then she texted her and was like, whatever you do not get in the car with her. But Ruby was like, oh, she's okay. And she's like, do not get in the car with her. And she tells her, run, like fucking run away from wherever you are. So then Easton tells her he found out who the person is and to come, meet with him. And she's like, I'm heading out now. She's like, I already know who it is. And he's trying to get her to wait for him, but she's like, nope, can't wait. And so she leaves anyway. And while she's en route, she of course sees Wyatt in her passenger seat, and he tells her, pretty much don't let anyone take anything away from you. Like, you need to fight. She's trying to take your sister away from you. You need to fight. And she says to him, I'll always love you. And Wyatt says back to her, I'll always love you too. And she heads towards the bar. So while she's on the way there, she's trying to get through traffic. She gets a phone call from Ruby. Ruby got out of that car when Mia started, we'll just say Amelia, started talking about how like talking about shooting her. Girl got out as soon as she stopped at a light. She got out of that car and now she's hiding in the bushes by the railroad tracks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is playing all over again. It's snowing. We're by railroad tracks. It's life and death stuff again. I'm like, oh my gosh. So she tells Eve. So Evie tells Ruby, stay hidden because she's looking for you. And Evie was close. Not she wasn't terribly close, but she was on her way towards the railroad crossing to where Ruby was hiding. But Ruby's like trying to like wave her hand so Evie can see her, and Amelia spots her. So now she's trying to get to her. So she starts running towards Evie, and Amelia jumps back in that car and she starts barreling towards her. But she runs into the truck driver. So a truck driver had got out, saw, the sister telling her to come and her running, and was asking like, you guys need any help. And she hit that guy, hit his truck, which made him, he flew up in the air. And I guess Easton was coming up at the same time. He got affected by that too. So he flew. But the truck driver dude, he's gone. But Easton's not, but his leg is effed up again. It's twisted. It's almost like the same scene with Easton. And so Amelia's like, with her gun, she's pointing it at Evie. She's ready to take her out. And Max gets there. But, I'm sorry. Before Max got there, Evie had called the police and told them there's a crazy lady here. She's drunk. She has a gun. Like, she did the whole spiel. We're by, whatever crossing they were at. And so Max gets there. And Easton is like, oh, thank God you're here. Because he's thinking, like, he's there to protect. But he goes straight up to Amelia. And Amelia had been screaming at Evie, about the letters, because Evie said, I found your letters. And she's like, of course you found them, because you're always taking things that don't belong to you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl is a whole nother level of crazy. So Max walks up to her, takes the gun from her, and is like, get in the car, we gotta go. And she did it, because to her it was like, because she looked at him and she was like, oh my gosh, you came. Like, oh my gosh, you're here to save me. So it's like this fantasy of this man saving her. It was happening. So she was happy. So it was like in that moment, she didn't even care about taking out Evie or Ruby. It was like this man came to save her. Oh, he really cares. So they got in the car and they sped off. They got out of there. The police come. Ruby was hurt. Easton's hurt. And she's back to in her head thinking like, oh God, who should I run to first? We fast forward 4 months later, and it's now spring. Easton and Eva are getting married. Victoria's there. She's done with Paris. She got sick of it. The different guys trying to be with her, and she didn't want them. So she's super happy for Evie. She did ask her, have you heard from Amelia? And she was like, I do not want to talk about that today. And Victoria's like, that's fine, I understand. So then she tells her, she just needs a minute to herself to meditate, ground herself. So Victoria leaves, and of course, while she's doing this, she sees Wyatt. And Wyatt lets her know he's pretty much been floating between the living and the dead. Like, he's just kind of been floating since the day of that accident all those years ago. And that's why he was able to write the stories. And she has a pile of envelopes because she's terrified to open them after what happened. And I can understand that. And he says to her, open this one. And so she does, and it's a letter from Max. And it basically lets her know that she was so kind to him and it meant a lot. And how she treated him changed the outlook of what happened. Because he was going to help Amelia. He was going to help her execute her plan. And he probably believed she was really done wrong. And this was the person that was the cause of all of her pain. But he realized spending time with Evie and her family, that she really was a good person. And that she saw both, good and bad in him and didn't demonize him for that. And so he said, here's a gift for you. So he already carries around a vial of dirt from his sister's grave with her picture. He sent her a vial of blood, Amelia's hair, and some dirt, which means he's buried her. So that's her grave, which lets her know he took care of her. So she doesn't have to worry about her ever coming back to bother her. Some people, I don't know. Some people can be redeemed, and some people, I don't know, probably are just a little too far gone. And I think she was one of those people. She wasn't willing to look at the fact that it was her parents that caused a lot of things for her. That it wasn't anybody else's fault. It was her parents. And so, because of that, if you're not willing to look at what the actual issue is, I don't know. Maybe she was one of those people that couldn't be redeemed. And it makes sense. It was a good thing that she was nice to him and she showed him that kindness. And it lets you know that's why you should be kind to people, because you never know what type of misfortune, you could be putting off. So that is the end. I really liked this series. It ended with a bang, and I liked it. I really, really did. Let me know what you guys thought of this series, what you thought of the final book in this series, The Devoted Fan. Drop down in the comments section. Let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful journal or notebook, I do have a link available for those for you to purchase. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.